Hey guys, it's Edwin here, and today I'll be talking about how long does it really take to heal from abuse, or to heal from trauma, or to heal after living an abusive relationship. This will be a long one, but stay tuned. It will be so logical, not so much about psychological jargon, but because like if there's one question which will linger in the back of your mind after you've been in an abusive relationship, it will always be this question of like how long will it take for me to heal, like how long will it take for me to move on, to fully move on. And actually this question is sometimes dangerous because it carries a lot of bias to it. Of course, also me, I'm biased in my own opinion. But if you're not aware of the extent of the bias, you might find yourself, or if you're not trading carefully or consciously, you may find yourself getting stuck in your own mind because you may find yourself just getting in this state of looking for answers for that question, yet you should be working on yourself. And I would like to explore this question logically and with my own bias as well. And there is no like right or wrong answer here. It's just an exploration, and because it's an exploration, I'd like you to follow along with me, and it may also like help you with some insights on the cunning nature of the mind and even mental health space at large, like this whole aspect of psychology, working on yourself, therapy, and all those kind of things. But before we start, we will first have to understand that there's always one thing that cuts across all forms of personal development or healing or therapy, and that thing is your mind or your ego or your current worldview or your current perspective or how you view yourself or the self or how you view yourself in the present moment. Just how you view yourself. That cuts across all those things. So before we start, like this video may be slightly provoking and needs an open mind, and I'd like you to follow along with me. There's no right or wrong. So this is what normally happens. The first advice you will get after leaving, let's say, a narcissistic relationship is to educate yourself about NPD, like personality disorders, red flags, and all those other fancy terminologies. So learning and studying about narcissism or toxic relationships is really amazing because you want to understand them, you want to understand toxic relationships, you want to understand why they do what they do, you want to understand what you've been through, or just educating yourself about some of their manipulative ways so that you can understand some of the manipulative ways they use to get to you. So there's no problem actually with learning. It's really amazing, and it even sheds some light on what you are going through in the relationship. Let's say you didn't know about gaslighting or blame shifting, so you now understand those terminologies. But the trap of this is it soon transitions into a rabbit hole. You may find yourself binging on content across the internet, like waiting for new weekly videos from your favorite like experts, and stacking more and more information or more and more books. So instead of you healing now, you find yourself heading to this path of wanting to learn, to learn, to learn, to learn. Like if you find yourself in this new world of psychology where you try to understand your narcissistic ex, or you try to understand personality disorders or all those kind of things. So all these will of course take your time because you'll be focusing on the evilness of the narcissist, evilness in quotes, instead of focusing on the one who's in pain or the one who's suffering, which is you. And the more you learn, the more you're empowered, of course, on the logical space, but you'll also be getting more and more angry at yourself. You'll be getting more angry at yourself for falling for their deception, for falling for their lies. You'll be telling yourself things like, how could I fall for that? And then you'll also be replaying scenarios of some abusive ways you didn't know about. Let's say you learn about something like gaslighting. You didn't know about it before learning. So the more you replay those scenarios of the instances where the narcissist gaslighted you, the more you feel bad about yourself, or even pity yourself for what you went through, or pity yourself for what you put yourself through. And the more you wallow in your own self-pity, the more you dissipate the energy you'd have channeled or you'd have rechanneled to working on yourself or to focusing on your insides. So you find yourself digging and digging for answers, wanting to know about why they do it, like to know about narcissism and all those stuff. And the more you dig, the more you get more questions about narcissism. And all these things, of course, will consume most of your time, because you're learning. Like, you might find yourself with questions, and one question will always lead to another question, and the list goes on, and your days go by. On the other hand, of course, the narcissist will not even be bothered, and will even be moving on with their life. So probably they'll be moving on with their new supply, and then you are there learning about them. So it all started with you innocently following the good advice, in quotes, about learning about NPD. But the thing is, they forgot to tell you that you need to look at the clock, and learning has its own limitations. Like, you may find yourself learning these things for years, for 5 years, 10 years. Of course, you may feel slightly better, of course, but the clock will always be running. The clock will always be ticking. And of course, someone like you're not a psychologist or anything. You just want to heal because you have a busy schedule. You have to work. You have to do this. So, because I say that I'm going to explain it logically, let's just do a small calculation. So there, in fact, like, I did a research, like there are over 3,000 books with titles like Narcissist, and thousands of articles on the internet about narcissism or trauma or inner child. So, like, if you decide to study, you will not really exhaust all of them in a lifetime. You will not really exhaust all the books. But the thing is, your mind will feed you with this idea that you just need another book, another video. So if you're really in this trap of asking yourself how long it takes, and then all you've been doing is studying, I want to give you a challenge. Like, how about you be honest with yourself and look at the clock when you're studying these things? Like, look at the clock. Don't just study or binge this content. Look at the clock, and you can ask yourself questions like, how long since you read your first article, or since you watched your first video on narcissism or abuse? How long has it taken? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 1 year? Then you ask yourself a question like, what else do you want to study? Like, what else do you want to watch in these videos? Is it different terminologies? Or you're just simply stuck and you don't know what to do? It's just about being honest with yourself and really challenging yourself so that you can push you through this. The thing is, if you ask yourself a question like that, what you will find out is you really know a lot about them. And if you are deeply honest, there's nothing new you can learn from a new weekly video from your experts. Because experts will launch a video every week, then you'll just go follow. The thing is about your mind now, or your current perspective, is it latches on to studying and learning about mental health, about mental abuse, about psychological abuse as a defense mechanism, or as an escape from looking at what's lacking deep inside. So if you keep going on this path of learning, of course your healing journey will take years and years and many years, and you may never really see the light. You may never really break free from those toxic patterns. You will always think that you need another book, another video, another article, another blog, or just another Facebook post, another Instagram post. But the thing is, when you are doing all these things, time will be flowing. So studying mostly turns into an obsession and accumulation instead of being a tool that helps us unlearn or uncondition ourselves or understand ourselves better. So instead of learning being something about understanding, it turns out to be accumulation. So it always starts with this simple and innocent advice of understand personality disorders. But that advice, yes, it's okay. It has its place, but it's also so dangerous. And the mind will always choose to focus on studying because that's the path of least resistance. It's the path of least effort. It's so easy to read. I can read. Anyone can read. And it's actually the longest path to getting to the root of the problem. So instead of now looking here, deep inside here, you look at there. So studying is not healing, and that's why you may take a long time before you get there, before you heal. Another thing is, as you study, your mind may also deceive you that now I understand these people, so I'm beyond manipulation, and that you've even healed. Then after that, you find yourself jumping into another relationship, or even jumping into the dating scene with your educated self. Like I've seen comments saying that a narcissist will not threaten my educated ass. I've seen something like that on Facebook. So once you jump into the dating scene, you find yourself with the same emotional pain, with the same toxic patterns. And the moment you find yourself in those patterns after reading, you now convince yourself that actually it takes forever to heal, or you'll never heal. And you even have evidence of that, because you thought you'd heal with logic, but now you've not really healed, and you are just attracting the same patterns. So you'll resign to this feeling of it's not possible to heal, or it takes forever. The other thing is, of course, if you've never done it before, there's this thing of like, you might try to do a brief Google search with the question in the lines of, how long does it take to heal from abuse? In fact, while I was making this, I did this research, and the first answer from the first page of Google is from 2 months to 20 years to never recovering. You can do that Google search for yourself just to understand this exploration. So here is the tricky part. Do you think your traumatized self or your unhealed self will take the best case scenario of healing taking 2 months, or the worst case scenario? Or the worst case scenario of never recovering, or it takes 20 years to heal? Of course, I know you know the answer. The mind will always take the worst case scenario. So even after that brief Google search, the mind will take the worst case scenario, because that's where your unhealed wounds or your current perspective of reality wants you to be. Because we have to remember something about the mind. It will always choose the path that's the most comfortable to it, or that's most familiar to it, which is the worst case scenario. Your mind is not used to defying the odds, because you've been in an abusive relationship, you've been traumatized, you've been gaslighted and manipulated by the narcissist or by the abuser to always see the worst in you. You've been blamed daily, you've been called names, and you always see yourself as the worst. So the mind will not pick the best case scenario of 2 months. No, it will mostly pick the worst case scenario. And the moment you pick the worst case scenario, you may develop this attitude of therapy does not work, so why bother? Like I've seen in Google that you may take forever to heal, so why bother? Or you may get stuck with something like, I'll be with my problems forever. That's just the mind feeding you with things it sees and it interprets depending on your current perspective of reality. This is the thing, because when you're traumatized, your mind will always pick the worst case scenario for you. So instead of information like empowering you, this logical information, it's now more disempowering you instead. One other thing we have to talk about in this logical aspect of how long does it take to heal. And don't worry, I'll share my answer in the end, is online forums and Facebook groups. So one aspect why your healing may take a long time is when you're part of an online forum like Reddit, Facebook, or just any other social media platform. So yes, those platforms are actually very amazing, because they can validate your experiences, and you might even learn from other survivors of abuse. You might even learn from what other people are going through, and they're also filled with, but the thing is, they're also filled with another form of toxicity. Like those groups turn out to be toxic. This is because you will read a lot of negative comments or negativities and attacks on the narcissist and attacks on the abusers. So it turns out to be you, the victims of abuse, versus narcissist. In fact, I once read a post on Facebook groups in the lines of empaths are from God and narcissists are from the devil. So those groups were meant to be validating for you, but as I've said, they turn out to be you versus them, like victims of abuse versus the narcissist. So The moment your fragile mind latches onto that, you lose the plot of what healing is all about. You think it's a competition. Like you think you are competing with the narcissist to see who is the good one. No, that's not it. It's just a distraction. And then the thing is, you will also read comments from other survivors of abuse that have been living with their traumas for 20 years or even more. Or they will talk about how they've tried all forms of therapy, of course, which is always false, but nothing is working for them. So, here's the trick now. When you are naive, innocent, and you're starting your healing journey, and then you read a comment like that, so negative and everything about healing, you will of course believe what other survivors are feeding you with. Because you'll have this common notion of, after all, they understand me because they've all been through similar kind of experiences in quotes. So the thing is, you'll hardly get those people who've completely healed from abuse hanging out in those Facebook groups or those online forums like for 24 hours a day. Here is why. So when someone has healed, or like this is also this simply because like spending most of your time in social media is just another compulsive behavior, like scrolling, and that compulsive behavior is mostly a symptom of unhealed trauma. I'll make a video about this in the past, about the toxicity of online forums. They are good, but they can also be toxic. So when you go to those groups, you will find other traumatized people. Yes, they validate your experience, but they might also be so much deeper into victimhood. So instead of them telling you that, hey, it's possible to heal and I have taken like 1 year or even 6 months to heal, no, they'll feed you with these feelings of it's not possible to heal. It's more of this Bible provides, I think, something in the lines of the blind helping the blind, something like that. So all your beliefs will be now in the lines of you will never heal from narcissistic abuse, and you just have to stay with it. Because the Facebook groups are telling you so, the online forums are telling you so. Yes, they're validating, but at the same time, they're not challenging you to rise up from those groups. So that's how your ego or your pain has won, in quotes. And you now believe that no healing modality will work for you, or you now jump to the common phrases of time is the healer of all wounds, so you choose to do nothing. Or if you hear about something or someone, let's say me telling you that, hey, it can take even 2 months or 1 month to heal, you'll be like, nah, that's just another new age bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about. That's what normally happens. That's what I face on a daily basis. So here's a challenge to you. I told you it's all about logic. If you feel that you can't really stay off social media and you're turning out to be like this keyboard warrior, like giving advice, listening, or just you can minimize or even cut off social media completely. And also, if you've not healed, I think it's maybe much better to stop giving advice of telling people that, hey, it's not possible to heal. Then work on those painful emotions before going back to social media. And if you are new to online forums, of course, stick to the positives, not the negatives. Stick to the positive, telling you people like, hey, it's possible to heal. I was this, and then I'm now healed. But don't spend all your days there. If you can, of course, afford therapy, go for therapy. That's much better than going to online forums. So, in conclusion, like, if I'm to answer this question of how long it takes to heal from abuse, I will just say one thing. Don't look at how long it takes, but instead look at your present life. Like, look at your present life and ask yourself this question, like, what am I doing each day to heal? Like, what are you doing each day to heal? You can just sit down and ask yourself those questions, like, honestly. And I know your mind may not let you do so, but at times when it comes to asking ourselves these tough questions, we might just force ourselves without putting it into so much thought onto it. So there are two scenarios here. Like, these are questions you can just also write down and then think about it. Like, are you focusing on demonizing the narcissist, or are you waiting for the next article, for the next video from your experts? Like, Are you spending too much time on social media, like on online forums like Reddit, Quora, without any clear intention or clear objective? Or are you looking for another relationship and you think that there's nothing to heal, like there's nothing to deal with it, just the narcissist was so messed up, so evil? Or are you thinking that your knowledge is enough, or learning about them is enough, and you don't need anything else? And do you always think that once you understand them, or like once you understand the narcissist, you'll be okay? Well, if possible, just write those questions down and then ask yourself those questions. The other part is, or are you taking full responsibility of your current life? This is now the part which I'd like you to be. Like, are you spending more time with yourself, practicing your own self-care, and learning about yourself? Not learning about the narcissist, learning about yourself, learning about your self-esteem, learning about your self-worth. Or are you focusing on how you can love yourself more, how you can treat yourself better, how you can respect yourself? Are you tirelessly working on your vulnerabilities, working on those things which make you susceptible, or those things which made you susceptible to toxic people? So if you are sticking to the positive option on focusing on yourself, taking full responsibility, learning about yourself, working on yourself, then healing will not take forever for you. But if you are focusing on the other side of dealing with the narcissist, the evilness of the narcissist, like narcissist is always wrong, narcissist did that, understanding them, then healing is not going to happen for you. But if you focus on yourself, then you will heal. So healing is a unique journey, but as I've said, if you focus on the narc, you are taking the wrong direction. Or as I said in the past, you are taking the wrong turn, pun intended. So, and it will keep you stuck way longer in those pits of hell. It will keep you stuck way longer with the pain. And one last thing is, if your sort of therapy or help or counseling has not worked for you, that doesn't mean that you've exhausted all forms of therapy or all forms of coaching or all forms of counseling. Something else will work for you. So just look at it as part of the journey, and don't let your mind or your ego throw you some generalizations like therapy doesn't work or you will never heal based on your experiences. No, you can always relearn or learn something positive from that experience. Your true nature is love and authenticity, and that's where you've got to work on. You've got to work towards. Yes. And the thing is, I've been in this space for close to 2 years now, and I'm constantly learning every day. And I've seen survivors of abuse transform right in front of me, in front of my eyes, like in a month. I've also seen some transform in 3 months. And they had the same concerns before, like they thought it will take forever. But the thing they had is they had the passion and commitment to really work on themselves. And for me, I had the right tools for the job. And I've also seen, of course, not just me being biased here, I've also seen other great therapists like do this. So it doesn't have to take years and years if you're committed and have the right tools. It doesn't have to take years and years to heal from abuse. And also, just because an expert in this field or an expert in this space of toxic relationships has said that you won't heal or it won't take forever, doesn't mean that you, the one who's watching this, has to be part of those statistics. Now, I want you to like challenge yourself and don't be part of the statistics, or don't focus on the statistics of how other survivors have taken 20 years, have never healed. No, you are not a statistic. You are just an individual. So focus on yourself and focus on healing yourself. You are not a statistic. Like, you can never be a statistic. And you have to know that healing, even for someone like you, someone who thinks that it's not possible for me, is always a possibility as long as you are committed, you have the right tools, and you are really giving your all for this healing journey. So hope you found that informative, guys. Like, how long does it take to heal doesn't matter. It's what you are doing to heal and the tools you are using to heal. I've seen people transform in a month. I've seen others in 3 months. I've also seen the best therapists like do it in like 2 weeks. That's not me, of course, but I'm still learning. And if you'd like my help to work on those subconscious patterns and to work on those healing, as always, you don't have to do it alone. And you can book a free call with me anytime here, and I'll be ready to help. Hope you found that informative, challenging, and provoking, guys. Until next time, see ya and have a nice day.